Hello Pokemon Masters, Berkeeper Toby here, and Kanto had a lot of interesting different forms of life. However, now we must look to its neighbouring region of Johto. Stretching from Mount Silver to the Whirl Islands, the life forms found here can help us paint a bigger picture of what's going on in the Pokemon world, and we'll finally get to see how some of these creatures relate to the ones from the Kanto region. What types of creatures might we find here? Additionally, there is one more Pokemon that's kind of our perplexing Pokemon of the day, so to speak, and that is Blissey. What is this Pokemon? You're going to have to let me know your thoughts in the comments, your guesses, and see if you're right later. It has feathers like a bird and a pouch like a marsupial. It lays eggs like a bird or reptile, but it's not a bird. I mean, come on. It can't be, right? I'm a bird keeper, I would know. For now, let's look at a different type of life, the Cnidaria, and a coral Pokemon named Corsola. Corsola is a Pokemon found around Olivine City and the Whirl Islands, and corals in the human world, despite their appearances, are in fact animals, invertebrates. Corsola and corals are part of the classification Cnidaria, and they are actually quite closely related to mollusks, which, as we said in the last part, sometimes live in shells. Two great examples here are Macago and Shuckle. While it's less clear with Shuckle, Macago likely developed in an era where the Earth was still boiling on the surface. It's only in this extreme environment where such an extreme type of life could survive. Non-shelled mollusks include the octopus, one of the most bizarre forms of life to exist here on Earth, and in the Pokemon world for that, we have Octillery. In fact, according to its Pokemon Sun Pokedex entry, this Pokemon is a descendant of the Lord Helix itself, Omastar. Other types of sea life worth noting here are the other bony fish like lantern and quillfish. Kingdra is also amongst these, being a seahorse. There is another type of sea life here though in the Johto region that is a little bit different, and that is Mantine. Now Mantine, or Mantine, is often seen with a Remoraid attached under its wing. This might be similar to how cleaner fish work in our world. Cleaner fish have a sort of symbiotic relationship with the fish that they swim around, many of them eating dead cells or bad bacteria from in and around the fish. That's right, they even go in the bigger fish's mouths. But the bigger fish don't eat them, instead they let them do their job. The two creatures help each other survive, and we can see this in how Mantike evolves into Mantine. This when you have a Remoraid in your party. Now we move on to the arthropods. They emerged from the sea long ago, and they wear their skeletons on the outside in the form of exoskeletons. Ariados is an arachnid. Ariados, though, is not actually a true arachnid, having only 4 limbs instead of 8. And this will continue through all spider Pokemon in the future. I guess Pokemon just likes to keep it simple. Leodin is of course a ladybug and Heracross a beetle. And I said in the last part that it's likely that these life forms evolved from the arthropod known as Kabutops in ancient times. And this can be seen in another Pokemon from Kanto, Scyther, and its Johto evolution Sizzle. Like I say, you can't see it so much with Sizzle, but you can see the similar traits between Scyther and Kabutops. Not only do they both have massive scythes for hands, they also have similar postures and are both great hunters with incredible agility. Once introduced to the Metal Coat, its scythes change drastically, but you can see how these Pokemon could be connected. Similarly, the technique of evolving a metal exoskeleton to help you survive is shared with other bog Pokemon, including Fortress. It is the evolution of the Pokemon Pineco, which is not actually a pinecone, it just looks like them. They're actually bagworms like Burmy. And bagworms become moths. So Fortress is actually kind of like Metapod and Kakuna. It's still in the cocoon state, and clearly whatever it's doing is working for it, so it doesn't need to go any further than that. So it's a cocoon closely related to the moths and butterflies. Amphibians are also around this generation, with Politoed, obviously related to Poliwrath. There's also Quagsire, which is an axolotl, and if you know your Pokemon, they'll be popping up again in the next episode. Another path where life diverts is Reptilia, and in the Johto region there are plenty of those. Dunsparce and Steelix, of course, are snakes. And in the Johto region, it does seem that forming a metal exoskeleton is the way to go. Although reptiles don't typically have exoskeleton, this is the Pokemon world, so we have to give it some leeway. And fun side note here about Dunsparce, its Pokedex entries talk about how it happily shares tunnels with Diglets. We also get our first look at crocodiles and alligators in the form of Feraligatr, which is, well, it's an alligator. It's still in contention, but it's thought that alligators and crocodiles are very closely related to birds and are some of the closest living relatives alongside birds to the dinosaurs. In fact, it's worth me noting here that birds actually are dinosaurs. They aren't just relatives, they are what dinosaurs look like in the present day. Birds equal dinosaurs. However, in the Pokemon world, dinosaurs have also lived in their more traditional forms in the Pokemon Tyranitar. While there is of course a fossil Pokemon of the T-Rex in Tyrantrum, which will be later on down the line, Tyranitar is a living modern day version, so it seems that some of the dinosaurs of the Pokemon world managed to survive. This can also be seen in Meganium. And while it's exciting to talk about the survival of these Pokemon, we're going to explore their evolutionary branches a little bit more in later parts. There is also one more change to the world of Pokemon that I would like to suggest that's a little bit different to our own, and that is the evolution of bats. Bats in our world are very clearly mammals. They evolved alongside the rest of the mammalia, but in the Pokemon world there is a theory that strongly connects bats like Crobat to reptiles in the form of Aerodactyl. It is said that Crobat might be the closest living relative to Aerodactyl. There are a lot of shared traits between these Pokemon, from their wing structure to pointy ears and teeth being only present in the bottom row. As well as that, as the theory goes, they both have similar stat curves, movesets, they're both omnivores, and they are both cave dwellers. The list goes on, and there is a link below to the full theory video explaining this, but it seems likely that Crobat is the closest living relative to Aerodactyl, meaning that bats in the Pokemon world might actually be a form of reptile that has evolved similar to mammals. Mammal-like reptiles, just like how whales are mammals, not fish, but more on that later. Taking to the skies further are the bird Pokemon, which of course evolved from the dinosaurs. The ancestor of Tyranitar is also probably the ancestor to a lot of the bird Pokemon. Delibird is a penguin, Skarmory yet another steel-exteriored creature, and clearly a bird. Xatu and Noctowl are both birds with psychic-like qualities. Noctowl obviously being an owl, so perhaps there is some relationship between those two as well. In the world of mammals, we have Donphan, which is an elephant, Azumarill, which is a rodent with relations to a mouse, gerbil, and a rabbit, depending on which traits you look at. Girafarig, of course, is a giraffe, and Slowking, a sea cow, joining Slowbro. Speaking of cows, Miltank and Tauros are so closely related, being practically gender variants of each other, much like how Nidoking and Nidoqueen are, different species of Pokemon that share a lot of history and lore. Also, Miltank is pretty scary, so I wouldn't dare place it incorrectly. You know that they are related. Oh, painful memories of Whitney. Still, there is a deer, meaning it's not too far related from Pokemon like Girafarig or Rapidash. Ampharos is some kind of bizarre shaved sheep with fine wool, and we can't forget the human-like Pokemon either, with Hitmontop teaming up with Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. In Carnivora, we have another bear, that's Ursaring, and Furret and Typhlosion are respectively based off of ferrets and badgers, which are both very closely related animals, and while there are no cats in Johto, there are dogs, namely Gramble, Houndoom, and Smeargle. And two new types of dog, cat, fox creatures in Espeon and Umbreon. Oh, these evolutions are an odd bunch. But you can see how certain ones seem to specialize in particular traits, with Jolteon looking a little bit more like a fox and Espeon being the most feline of them all, and possibly the closest living relative of Mew. This is to say that over millions of years, some of the creatures are likely to look close to the original form of life, and here we can see between Espeon and Mew that they are very similar. They are both feline, psychic, they have similar color schemes, as well as that Mew is the ancestor to all Pokemon, while Espeon is an evolution of Eevee, the Pokemon that is known for its DNA diversity. I'm actually not intending to talk too much about the legendaries in these parts, I want to save those for later on. However, there is a trio here that may well be very closely related to the evolutions as well, and that is the legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. These creatures are said to be resurrected from dead Pokemon by the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh. Now, no one's quite sure where Ho-Oh came from either, but these three Pokemon may well be resurrected Flareon, Jolteon, and Vaporeon. This is a very popular theory amongst Pokemon researchers, and given the evolution significant in Equitique City where the Burnt Tower is, you can see how these Pokemon might be related. Now, there is one more Pokemon that of course I want to talk about when it comes to mammals, and did you forget? It's Blissey. After discussing this with two different evolutionary biology students and many Pokemon experts, I finally came to a decision about this Pokemon, but you might disagree. I believe it to be an undiscovered type of monotreme. Monotremes are some of the most bizarre life forms on Earth, and they are as well mammals, and you only really see them in two groups, the Platypus and 4 different species of echidnas. These odd animals have all kinds of traits that don't typically fit in nature. Echidnas have spikes like a porcupine, platypuses have bills like a duck, but then they have pouches and they lay eggs. And Blissey kind of fits this. It has a body shape that definitely isn't a bird, but then it has feathers, it has a pouch and lays eggs. So like I say, after many discussions, a monotreme made sense to me, but maybe you have a better argument which you can leave in the comments. Like a platypus, it's certainly not a bird, and its feathers may be more like the spines and quills of an echidna, but again, you'll have to let me know your thoughts. That before we move over to Hoenn in part 3. Of course, the creatures of Johto are one thing, but in the next part we'll be moving over to the Hoenn region, where life there has evolved kind of weird, and that's an understatement. Just look at Ludicolo or xPloud. Anyway, you'll have to engage with me your thoughts in the comments, and as always, so hi Pokemon Masters.